NAB out with news this morning say it will buy back some $2.5 billion of its ordinary on-market shares in August to help restore CET1 capital levels towards its ratio target. And the Chief Executive, Ross McEwan, saying NAB's strong financial position, along with the divestment of MLC Wealth, has led the bank to look further at ways to return capital to shareholders. And the buyback, as mentioned, will begin next month and equates to around 2.9% of NAB's market capital, and follows, of course, ANZ's $1.5 billion buyback announcement earlier this month. Adam, how are you looking at NAB? I guess no surprise, given where the banks had to position themselves at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, it is, and it's really welcome news to shareholders to get that $2.5 billion. I think $2.5 billion is a fairly decent number too. It's fairly large, comparing that to ANZ, and I suspect most of the banks are going to follow with asset sales as well as other things that they've been doing to sort of give back a little bit to shareholders. Obviously, a buyback is positive for the share market or for the result of the shares. I do feel though that it would have been nicer if they sort of bumped up their dividend, but I think that they're potentially looking to have a better dividend this year or this half anyway. So, look, I think it's a positive move for the sector, positive move for the stock, and I think depending on your individual circumstances, you would potentially look to take some of that buyback up. Okay, so do I take that as a buy, a hold? What are you looking at? It's a buy. Okay, yeah. Claude. Maybe bank's not your thing, but how are you looking at NAB?
Well, I guess so. In terms of the actual news today, I guess I'm probably not an expert in this area, but I would have thought that the share price movement today, which is basically flat, should probably indicate that this isn't hugely. This shouldn't really change the overall thesis. This buyback, I guess it was probably already largely expected or priced in or something, because it's up about the same amount today as the other banks. So I guess that doesn't change my view of it, to be honest, in terms of looking at the long-term NAB. But then I would actually encourage people to look back a bit further, say at least at the 5-year chart. I don't know if we've got that. But if we can just have a look at that 5-year chart, then basically we can see that the share price has gone nowhere over 5 years. So I would say that, I would argue that except for the dividend, which is fine. If you're a dividend investor, then, maybe own banks. Another way to play it is just to, and I'd put this, to Adam, would you index for the dividend or own the banks? Because if you actually just own the ASX 200 index, then you actually are owning heavily the banks because they're such a big part of the index. You just got a bit of other diversity in there. I'd argue it's a bit safer. Now, in terms of compared to the other banks, then yeah, actually NAB probably looks pretty good to me. But overall, I just don't get why individual investors, who wanting to spend time thinking about stocks and try and hone their skills to be as valuable as possible. I just don't think you're looking at the right place if you're looking at NAB. You're going to compete against a legion of people that are full-time looking at banks, advising big funds and that kind of thing. If you're just an individual investor, your advantage is in the smaller end of the market where there's not a legion of analysts and maybe these companies don't have relationships with brokers, and there's more equal access to information as well. There's not private meetings between the company CEO and analysts and stuff like that. So I had a stock that's literally up 90% today. Now, obviously that's a lucky result for me on this exact day, but that's the kind of thing that's possible in small caps. A news can move the thing 90%. Now, I'm not saying it deserves to be up 90%, but the point is that that's where I choose to play. So in the broader scheme of things, I guess that's why I don't spend too much time thinking about NAB.
All right. Hey, what was that stock? What's that stock that's up 90%?
Oh, that's a company called Acom, and I actually sold a little bit this morning, so I wouldn't rush out and buy. But that was a crazy move. I've not seen something like that very often.
All right. So your recommendation for NAB then?
Yeah, I'd just say, look, honestly, if you own it as part of an index or if you're a long-term dividend investor, hold on. But otherwise, I wouldn't be buying, no.